What do you have to lose right now? I just think people are scared to fail.
Being able to understand what it means to have to wait, to be patient.
You're listening to the Yash and Company podcast.
Hey everyone, this is Chalasani, otherwise known as Yash, and you are listening to another episode of the Yash and Company podcast. This is a show where we're joined by the world's best 20 and 30-year-olds. These people are in all sorts of different industries and doing all sorts of really cool things. Guests on the show could be people that are on the Forbes 30 under 30 list, professional athletes, nonprofit founders, or anything of the like. And sometimes we get really lucky and we're joined by someone who is a combination of those. And that is exactly who we have on today's episode. So today we have Justin Forsett, former Pro Bowl running back and CEO of ShowerPill, joining us. And before I introduce Justin, I just want to take a quick moment to say thank you for listening to the show. If you like what you hear each week, or maybe this is your first time listening to the show, I would really appreciate it if you show support for the podcast by subscribing. Or if you're on Apple Podcasts or on YouTube, give us a like, review, or comment. This input really helps us go a long way of spreading the podcast and sharing the message that we have on this show. And today's guest is Mr. Justin Forsett, who can be found on Twitter at jforsett, is an NFL running back and Pro Bowl player. He was ranked number 65 on the top 100 players of 2015. He's been described as a powerful player despite being undersized and overmatched, something that we'll actually get to on the show. At 5'8", Justin became an underdog fan favorite in the NFL. Drafted by the Seattle Seahawks in the 7th round in the 2008 NFL Draft, Forsett started his 9-year football career in which he played with 7 different teams. He's a podcast host on LeBron's Uninterrupted podcast network, featured in Sports Illustrated, and appears on the final episode of Long Shot. Justin is a writer, sports news contributor, and radio broadcast color analyst. Justin's skills as an entrepreneur and inventor found him featured on ABC's Shark Tank, something we definitely will get to on the show, and as the creator of ShowerPill. Justin spends his time dedicated to helping victims of Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. He's the expert on leadership, overcoming adversity, and perseverance. So if there's one word I had to use to describe the episode recording with Justin, it would definitely be inspiring. Justin's entire upbringing, his football career, and even the life that he has now, he sees himself as an underdog, and he really was. And he talks about that on the show and how it was like for him to realize that, but to also know that if he can control what he can control, and he uses the heart that he has and the passion he has for the things that he's involved with, that he'll make it to the end goal that he has as well. And so Justin goes into some great detail about that on this episode, but we also get into some really fun things, as we always do. We talk about what it was like for Justin to room with Marshawn Lynch. We talk about what it was like for Justin to be on the episode of Shark Tank, as I mentioned earlier. And we also get into the life hacks that Justin uses in his everyday life to keep him on the top of his game, even after football. So without further ado, here is a long-form conversation with Mr. Justin Forsett. This is Yash. I am in Dallas, Texas, recording this episode at Riata headquarters, where I'm doing a little bit of an internship for a few weeks and having the most of their facilities here. But I'm joined by Mr. Justin Forsett. Justin, thanks for being on the show.
Yash, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you making the time. So, Justin, I think when we talk about your story, I think I'd be doing you a disservice if we didn't start with your childhood. So it seems like a lot of what has shaped you really started when you were in Florida. Mm-hmm. So in high school, I saw that you ended up moving to Dallas with a buddy of yours, and he ends up getting all this attention when y'all are playing football, right? Yeah. But I'll let you tell the story. So what is that all about?
Yeah, no. If I start back in where I grew up in a small town, 3,000 people, Mulberry, Florida, not a lot of people make it out to accomplish their dreams and goals and aspirations. And, I came from very humble beginnings, small town living, both parents in the house, I was the middle child of 3 boys. Both my parents, very hardworking. My dad, many numbers of jobs that he had, truck driver. We actually owned a restaurant for a while. My mom worked at a blood bank. She then worked in the restaurant. But still, for me, the odds were stacked against me. If you're outside looking in.
Did you feel that way growing up?
For sure. I knew I wanted to make it out. I fell in love with the game of football early on in my life. I saw a guy named Barry Sanders for the Detroit Lions, running back that was, similar in stature, small guy. But he was just exciting, electrifying on the field to watch and see. I wanted to do that, and that was going to be my vehicle out of my situation. And I knew that I had extreme faith, and I knew that it was going to take work to make it out, though. So I had to put the time and effort in, being from a small town, being undersized. And so that's what I did, man. I made a declaration early. It missed my situation. It was hard, difficult times with my family, moving from place to place, never owned a home, living out of a motel at one point in our life, running from repo men, trying to repossess our car, power is out, doing homework by candlelight, taking baths with bottled waters, you name it, been through it, tough times. And I was really making a declaration, really made a declaration early that I wasn't allow my family to deal with that, my kids to ever have to deal with those situations. And I was going to do whatever it took to make it out. My parents wanted a better situation for me. So we ended up moving to Arlington, Texas, my junior year in high school. And there it was almost a culture shock for sure, because even though it's still the South, but Florida is much different than Texas, especially when you talk about the sports landscape. We're very good in sports in Florida. Don't get it wrong, but you guys in Texas just they treat it a little bit different out here, especially high school football, high school sports. So very, people all my life told me I was too small, too short, too slow. No different when I came here. They didn't think I would be able to play running back, in this state and do well. And I ended up coming out here with a friend of mine. He was going through a difficult situation, so my parents offered to help and bring him out to this opportunity that I had to play at Grace Prep Academy in Arlington. And he was a phenom. He was a freak of nature. He was 6'4", running 4.3 40. Highly heralded, number 4 receiver out in the country at the time. And every scout, every head coach, you name him, was probably at our facility trying to get him, while little old me was trying to garner at least a little bit of attention, where, he was getting all the praises, all the scholarship offers, and Abilene Christian told me I could walk on. So I was fighting, just trying to get my way out of the shadows and trying to make it to the next step to accomplish my dreams. And that was going playing D1 football. And I wasn't highly recruited. I had a lot of offers. I had an offer out of nowhere that came from Notre Dame after my All-Star game. I was excited. I was thinking about, man, Notre Dame, it just makes sense. I was thinking about Golden Domers. I was thinking about Touchdown Jesus. I'm thinking about Rudy, man. I'm like, I'm the Black Rudy. It just makes sense that I'm going to Notre Dame. And it was exciting time for me and my family. I remember getting introduced while I was playing basketball after the football season. It's like, man, want to introduce you, starting shooting guard for Grace Prep Academy, now Notre Dame recruit and commit, Justin Forsett. And it was just an unbelievable experience, because everybody's so happy that, undersized, everyone told me I would never do it. And now I got a big scholarship offer to go to Notre Dame. And a week before signing day, they called me and told me they didn't need me anymore. So I remember being crushed from hearing that news. My dad shared the news with me, ran down to the basement where I lived, and I was just crying my eyes out as that 17-year-old kid, not knowing what my future was going to be like, or where I was going to go, or where it was headed. And I remember going down, praying on my knees, just trying to figure out, okay, what's next for me? I remember getting up from that and just feeling a sense of peace and resolve. And it's like, man, I have to excel at what I can control, and I have to have faith that something's going to break for me. I just got to put the work in. And I kept putting the work in, kept fighting. And out of nowhere, UC Berkeley came and offered me a scholarship way after National Signing Day. And it was just an incredible experience. I was just one step closer to my dream. Now going to UC Berkeley, the number 1 public institute in the world, and a football team that was ranked number 11th in the country, with Aaron Rodgers at the helm. And I'm coming in with another star running back,
Marshawn Lynch.
Yes, Marshawn Lynch, who ended up being sort of a big deal. So we came in at the same time, both freshmen and roommates, and just great experience at Cal. Met my wife there. Got a chance to, play with some great players, establish myself as an athlete. But it all, just that mindset, that mentality to try to have that chip on my shoulder, it all stemmed from Florida. It all stemmed from those humble beginnings, those times when when everybody else was partying and drinking, I was doing 1,000 push-ups and sit-ups a night. When everybody was relaxing on a Sunday, watching games or relaxing, having brunch after church, I was running miles throughout the neighborhood, when there was a lot of pit bulls and German shepherds running loose. Like I put in the time. I was running in fields in the middle of Texas heat at 1 p.m., just my blood, sweat, and tears, just focusing on my vision, my plan to make it out by any means necessary. I wasn't going to let school get in the way. I wasn't going to let girls get in the way. I wasn't going to let parties or anything, because I can remember that motel I lived in. I remember that room 108, those 2 queen-size beds for all 5 of us. I remember the blue-green vomit-looking carpet of that floor in that motel room. I remember those bottled waters that we had to take baths with. I remember running from walking, my parents parking the car blocks down the street and walking home just so we wouldn't get our car repossessed. I remember those times, and I allowed those things to refine me and not define me and make me a better person, a better athlete, and eventually a better man. So those things, it came from a place of crushing, a place of heartache and pain, and just using that as fuel to the fire and kind of trying to set myself up for greatness.
Sure. I love every bit of that. And I don't even know which part I should kind of go into more of, but you said something about when you were in that basement and your head was down and you didn't get that offer from Notre Dame, and you said, all I can do is control what I can, and then the rest will take care of itself, right? I think life is so simple in that way. That's all you need to, that's all you need to focus on. But in reality, we let our emotions kind of dictate a lot more of our lives. So when you look back at that time, that really difficult time, and you think about, what did you learn from that experience? What do you recollect on how you dealt with adversity from that?
I learned that you had to embrace the process. Anybody great, anybody that accomplished any type of success, they had to go through a point of crushing. They had to go through a point of adversity. And they never allowed those things to distract them. They always used it as fuel. At least the people that I've spoken to, it's a common theme throughout, being in professional sports. Guys come from nothing and they make the best of their opportunity. They work hard. They stay disciplined. They stay committed. Those things, you hear those words, those terms come up time and time again when you're talking to successful people. And I realized that, man, it's those people that have the ability to endure and not give up when everything else in you, when your mind, when your body wants to tell you to shut down and give it up, when people in your community, the people close to you that love you, that think they know best for you, when they tell you it's time to think of something else, when your back is against the wall and you don't know what's coming next, it's those people that dig deep and find what's inside of them. Those people are the successful ones. So even now, when I go through adversity as a man, as a father, as a husband, as a businessman, I think I try to embrace it, and I stop trying to ask the question why, because a lot of times when we go through adversity and we go through trials, we ask the question why, like, oh, why God, why me? Or why do I have to deal with these situations? I'm constantly fighting adversity. I'm constantly taking the long road or the hard path. But the real question is how? That's what we should be asking, is how, not why, because you can ask how because you say you're changing the perspective. You're saying, how can I use this as fuel? How can I use this to allow me to make me better? How can I become a better husband, become a better father, a better businessman, a better wife, a mother? Those things in the midst of adversity, because you're choosing to not allow those things to break you. And I think that we have a choice in the midst of adversity, and the great ones always choose to allow those things to push us to another level.
So when you're in college and you're rooming with Marshawn Lynch, did you notice that same kind of fire within him? Because when people look back on Marshawn Lynch, they see this guy. They see Skittles now.
Yeah.
But back then at Cal, I see him running around in the
cart.
The cart, yeah.
Yeah.
But he has a very similar story in the sense that if you people that know him talk about how much fire he had, right? Is that what you notice as well from him? And what did you learn from Marshawn?
For sure, kindred spirits. I mean, we both came from very humble beginnings. I came from the country. He came from the city of Oakland. And even though we were two different people, two, opposite ends of the spectrum, when you think about personality wise, we embraced each other because we saw authenticity. We saw that work ethic. We saw that same determination, to be great. And that's why we really connect and hit it off. And for him, I learned the one big thing that I get from him all the time, and we talk often, I was just talking to him yesterday, is that never taking yourself too serious. Like, you have to enjoy the moment.
He's really good at that.
Yeah. You got to enjoy the moment as well as embrace the moments that you have, because life is short. Even when he was a college athlete, we would watch him, create these amazing runs on the football field. You would hear him laughing. You would hear him on the football field making jokes. You just see a smile always on his face, because I think that he realized that, man, this is just a game, and there's so much more to life than just this game. And it's a privilege to do what we love, and it's not a right. And every day he treated it as such. And I think that sticks with me.
So you come out of college, you obviously do really well, and you go to the draft, right?
Yeah.
And I love talking about the draft. I was talking with Bryce Petty a few weeks ago, and we were talking about how that's like the moment that everyone kind of waits for, right? You dream of that moment of getting that call. Sure. And it's different from quarterbacks and running backs, right?
Yeah.
So quarterbacks, they got it good,
a lot of ways.
A lot of ways, right? And running backs, I'm not a football guru of any sort, but I do know that being a running back is tough. The years are a lot less because you just take a lot of poundage. And there's so many out there. So it's really tough to just even get picked high, even if you're good. So it's a tough sport. On top of that, as we're kind of talking about, which is probably a storyline about this whole episode, is you're kind of an underdog, right?
Yeah.
People have always mentioned your size, but they mention even more when you're getting it drafted, because they look at the physical attributes a lot more, which I still don't understand why. Because the great athletes, the Tom Brady's, the Aaron Rodgers, right? They don't have some of these characteristics that people look for.
Sure.
They're drafted later in the rounds, but anyway, I digress.
Yeah. I like it.
So you end up getting picked in the 7th round, and there's a stretch that really fascinates me. So you get picked in the 7th round by the Seattle Seahawks, but then you get waived that September, and then you get claimed off waivers by the Colts.
Yep.
And then you get released again in October. Just within that 1 month stretch, you get laid off by a team, you get picked up by a team, and then you get laid off again. And that kind of, I just can't imagine being in that situation, right? Where you're living the dream that you thought you were supposed to live. And then you just keep taking these hits that were not expected. And I was listening to, as I was prepping for this episode, one of the things that I heard that really stood out to me was about how you got fired 6 times, but you've been hired 7. Right? Yeah. So when you're going through that type of adversity, like, what goes through your mind? How do you process that, and what did you learn from that?
Man, it was tough as a 21, 22-year-old kid, essentially, dreams coming true, playing in the NFL, first getting fired, and not knowing what the future holds. And for me, it was either fight or flight, and I was always going to choose to fight. It was me thinking about more than just myself, my family. At that time, my mom, thyroid cancer had came back. So I was thinking about, I have to be able to provide not only for myself, but for my family, and make sure I'll be able to take some of those medical bills and be able to help them out. So every hit that I took, every block that I made, every punt that I had to catch with, 300-pound men coming down to try to take my head off, it wasn't just for me. It was for my family. So when I got released, of course it hurt, especially being young in those times with Indy and, Seattle, thinking that, man, I finally made it. And now it's been taken from me. But just learning from those times, like, what could I do better? How can I use this moment to make sure it never happens again?
Yeah, it's that question of how instead of why. Huh? Yeah.
Now it happened a few more times after that, being after my rookie year, but those things, it prepared me for that moment. It allowed me to kind of really build up those calluses that I needed to endure the journey that was ahead of me of just facing rejection, demotion, just all type of things that I had to face, ridicule, people, placing labels and limits on me. That those moments early on just kind of really shaped me. Even back to the Florida times, I was kind of really built for the journey that I had to take along the NFL path. But yeah, it was tough. It was tough. A lot of, you don't see this in the newspaper when you see a guy doing a transaction report where you say, okay, a guy makes the team. Training camp, which is after training camp, the final roster, my name is up there, which is a blessing. I'm excited. Whole family is excited, and this dream come true. We go to Buffalo. I didn't play, but I was on the sideline from playing the Buffalo Bills in my first game in the NFL. Traveling with the team, going through meetings, everything, getting ready for the game. And then that Tuesday, getting called in to say that, man, I'm going to be released and cut. And being heartbroken, hurt, and just like, man, I did everything that I could. I was one of the guys staying after. I was working hard. Like, you said you loved me. You said you liked me. And you had plans for me. And then get released. And then I was like, okay, I'm just prove somebody's going to pick me up. I had confidence somebody was going to pick me up. And I go to Indy and Tony Dungy's there. I'm like, man, that's one of my favorite coaches of all time. Peyton Manning, Edgerrin James. You think about all those big names there that at the Colts, and I was like, man, I'm about to go there and play with them. And I was like, man, this is just perfect. And 4 or 5 weeks later, same thing, I get released. And then I get picked up by the Colts, but I've been by the Seahawks right after. And it was a lot for me, renting furniture, things that you don't see on the transaction list, have to sell the furniture, breaking leases, which cost money, renting cars. It was a tough time, but it really set me up for what I needed, just to give me those calluses that I needed for my journey.
Sure. So following those years, you get picked up by the Baltimore Ravens, and they ended up having 3 running backs at the time, including you. One of which was Ray Rice, which when that whole fiasco happens, you get this opportunity to start playing.
Sure.
You take advantage of that opportunity, become a Pro Bowler, get a 3-year contract. Things start look completely different than they looked the time before. And it's really fascinating because whenever you look at success, we always talk about when someone says Justin Forsett, they say Pro Bowl running back. They don't say, oh, the guy that got fired 6 times, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny how titles work, because I think a lot of the titles that we have, well, first of all, there are a lot of external validation, right? So someone else voted you a Pro Bowl running back, right? Or like someone voted me, someone thought I was worthy enough to do this internship at this pharmaceutical company. But I think, but just like in the same light, someone thought that you weren't worthy to be a running back for their team at one point.
Yeah.
And we give ourselves so much heat because these are things that are not in our control. And we suffer from that. But, I think the only titles that really do matter are the ones that we give ourselves, like the internal validations, right? It's like, I'm in this situation. I want to focus on my why, or not on my why, but my how. And I want to, shape who I am in that time. I want to give myself the title. That's really what matters. So when you reflect on those highs and lows, right, from the Pro Bowl years to the years where you were cut, and you're just like you were saying, you're living off the rented furniture, right? What are some things that really stand out about that? Like, when you're going to what are you going to tell your grandkids about that time?
so much I can think of, but you wouldn't get the Pro Bowl Justin Forsett without the being fired, the being rejected, the being demoted Justin Forsett. Those times really shaped me to really maximize the opportunity given to me. I was in such a different space in Baltimore than I was prior to getting there. Being released so many times, being in a place where playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars before Baltimore, where I didn't think I would even get a chance to play football again. Shoot, that summer I was doing job internship, doing job shadows. I was getting ready to get out because I didn't think if I couldn't play for the Jaguars, I couldn't play for anybody. I still trained, but I was just like, man, I didn't know if something was going to come. So I was ready for the next phase. And I was at a place at peace because I had put so much power on my performance and on my career that it consumed me. And I had allowed a good thing to become an ultimate thing. I had allowed my career and how people viewed me to become the end all be all. The way I felt, the way I performed, the way I felt was based on my performance and how people saw me, instead of it being internal and realizing my why and my purpose of being the NFL. I mean, my purpose. Like, I wanted to be not only a great running back, but also a great father and a husband. Like, I didn't just want to be an all-pro football player. I want to be all-pro in all those other areas in my life as well. So when I reflect and what I want to share with my grandkids is like, man, Granddad was a guy that was hardworking, a guy that was resilient and persistent, and wasn't going to take no for an answer. And I want to impress those type of values and traits into them, because those things will carry you a long way.
Yeah, and let's go back to this whole underdog mentality for a second, because there's a couple schools of thought when it comes to whenever you talk to someone and say, hey, what should I do with my life, right? There's always a few schools of thought. One will always say, what are your strengths, right? What are you really good at? You should pursue those. And someone else will say, what are your passions? Like, what drives you? You should pursue that. It doesn't matter if you're good at, if you're not great at it, as long as you have the drive, you're going to beat out other people. Now, I think the collection of both of those perspectives is kind of the happy medium, right?
Yeah, sure.
But I look at your story and it's so inspiring, because here you are, 5'8" running back that, like, truth be told, is like not supposed to make it, right?
Yeah.
Just the way we were talking about it earlier, but you had such perseverance that you did succeed, and you succeeded to the level to become a Pro Bowler. So, when someone comes to you and they say, hey, I don't know what I want to do, or give me some guidance, based on your experience, what do you tell people?
Man, you definitely definitely have some talent has to be involved. You have to be good at something. But I think passion is where it is. Because for me, in my situation, I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the biggest. I wasn't the strongest. They measured how high I could jump. They measured how many times I could bench press 225. They measured how fast I was in a shuttle. They measured how much I weighed. They measured my height, but they could not measure my heart. They could not measure my ability to get knocked down 7 times and get up 8. They could not measure my ability to prepare and to be able to analyze and be able to put myself in a situation where I knew what was going to happen before it happened. Those things they couldn't measure, those intangibles. So I would encourage anyone to follow their passion. If you're really passionate about something, you'll start to develop some of those skills that it takes to be great at whatever you want to pursue.
I love that. So you were talking about earlier that you started transitioning out of football, or you started thinking about it. And I noticed that you actually started your company, ShowerPill, while you were in the NFL. There's a video I saw with you actually like going to a pitch while you were still like a football player, right? Yeah. So what is ShowerPill and how did it get started?
Yeah, ShowerPill is my product. I started with two of my teammates that I went to school with at UC Berkeley, and it came from a place where we're stinky athletic guys that were constantly on the go, from whether it's meetings to physical therapy to yoga class to Pilates class to back to practice to training, and we could not take a shower immediately after every interval of sweat. And there was nothing out there for us in that pain point. Even so much that in the NFL, there was a joke in the locker room where there was pills for everything, but no pills for a shower. So when a guy skipped out on a shower, he said, "I took a shower pill, bro. Don't judge me." So with that pain point being there, we wanted to create a solution, and that was to create ShowerPill, which is a disposable washcloth. It's an antibacterial towelette that removes sweat, dirt, and body odor while you're on the go until you can get to a shower. So right now, we're at a point where really trying to start this brand and evolve into a brand and not just a product, where it's active care. So we're taking care of the needs of the everyday athlete, the everyday adventurer that's on the go, that we provide convenient hygiene that's safe and clean for you.
I love it. And, you're doing pretty well.
You're,
in Target now.
Yeah.
Right. All of the Targets in the US. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty big feat. And, one thing that I think is really fascinating about the stage of your company, or like what you do every day, is that you get to talk to a ton of different people. And where I'm getting to is I want to talk about pitching. This is something that I'm really fascinated by, and listeners of this podcast know that that's something that I always bring up. But the thing with you is you're not just pitching to investors. You're also pitching to people that could be potentially buying your product. You're pitching at conferences. You're pitching at when I first met you, you just came from pitching at a marathon, right? And so, and I think pitching is really important, because I think that is what pitching is. Like, we're at the core, we're pitching ourselves in some degree in every part of our lives. And so when it comes to, let's just talk about kind of the sales side, right?
Sure.
What is your secret with pitching? Because I'm sure it was uncomfortable for you at one point, but now you're probably a pro. And I've seen you do it. There's videos out there of you doing it, and you do a pretty good job. So what have you learned about pitching from your experiences?
Be authentic as possible. Be you. Don't be anybody else, because they'll smell it from a mile away. Whether it's a customer, whether it's an investor, be authentically you. I've tried, early on trying to copy somebody else. Oh, but how do you pitch? What are things you try to emphasize? Like, what kind of energy do you bring? Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't come off as, authentic. So they smell it. And if it's something that's fake, it's not something that people are going to buy. And for me, being authentic, being myself, when I come and present to you, I'm giving you the same energy that I would give to some of my teammates in the locker room when I could sit, or the coaches that I would pitch to say, "Hey, I'm the guy to run this play. I'm the person that you need in order to execute this play off. Use me, and this is why you should use me." And it's the same type of, energy and effort that I would use in those meetings to pitch an investor, whether it's, a professional investor that's highly heralded, that works for a VC firm, or just a high net worth individual that's looking to get into something new, or the customer that's trying to figure out, like, what's this product? Do I really need this? Yes, you need this product. You have kids? Do you sweat? Yes, you need this product in your life. It's going to enhance your life. And I give you that same energy, that same smile, and I try to be authentically me.
I wish I recorded that, because there's definitely a glow that just came out of you as you were talking about that. I love that. And I'm assuming it was uncomfortable for you at first, right?
Sure.
So what got you to get over those hurdles?
You realize what's at stake. I mean, it's easy for me, like, now having investors and people that are backing me and supporting me. It's like, man, they're counting on me to pull this thing off. I got family, I have friends, I have teammates, people that have put money in support and say, "Hey, man, I believe that you're going to do this thing, and I'm counting on you." So I'm okay with being uncomfortable, of me not, being used to pitching. Like, I had to get over that, because it's bigger than me now. So I have to go out there and give that same smile, that same energy. I put my best foot forward because of that.
I love that. And one thing I probably should share is that we're talking about this over lunch is, you're in a very great financial state where, you could say, hey, I'm going to retire. I'm going to invest my money in stocks. I'll get, 100K dividend every year and I'll be happy for the rest of my life. But we talked about how that's not what you want. You want to be a creator. You want to create something different. And so, and one of the things that I heard is that you say is, I think being an entrepreneur is one of the sexiest titles you can have, right? It sounds great. Yeah, I'm a CEO of this startup or of this company or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, it's a tough job. So what have you found to be the toughest part about being an entrepreneur?
Oh man. One, people love to say, being an entrepreneur, man, you work when you want to, you create your own hours. There are no hours. It's nonstop. It's 24/7. Every day you wake up, you got to put out a fire. You got to figure out how you're going to move the company forward every day. So it's nonstop. I'm thankful for a great family wife that understands. But, when she thinks, most people think when you retire, you're kind of settling down, you're going to the golf course, especially having a career I had, 9 years in the NFL, a lot of traveling, went through a lot of different things. And now retirement means, just taking it easy. But no, it's the opposite. Things are ramping up. You're going, you're doing everything as me being the CEO, from mopping the floors to raising capital, to being on the road, pitching, being away from the family, trying to sell buyers from some of these big box retailers, to pitching investors, to marketing and making sure you're getting your finances in order and you're budgeting correctly. Some of those things are like, man, it's working. Constantly trying to put yourself around people that are smarter than yourself to kind of fill you on the things that you don't know, because there's a lot out there. So you're just trying to learn new things and kind of just recreate yourself.
Sure. Do you think it gets unhealthy at times, just having that constant pressure?
For sure. That's why you have to have something that centers you. For me, it's faith, and it's in my family that centers me and grounds me, so I'm not too overwhelmed at any point. That's kind of the foundation of who I am. That's been the way since my whole life. So it's no different with being an entrepreneur, whether it's like, oh man, I don't know if we're going to make it to next month, or I got to put as far as customer service. We got to respond to, like, we got to get the packages out. The 3PL went down. Like, we got to get something out. Like, there's always something that's popping up, but you got to be a problem solver and an entrepreneur. You got to be the calm one. There's people that are working under you. You got a team. Like, you got to be strong.
Sure. And one of the fun parts of your journey so far is that you got to go on Shark Tank.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's funny because I was prepping for this and we were having lunch and you said, you're bringing up Shark Tank, right? And I was like, yeah, I'll make sure I bring it up. So Justin, I'll let you talk about Shark Tank. So how is Shark Tank like for you? Is it as riveting as it looks like on TV?
Yes. For me, and in the previous part of the interview, I talk about you wouldn't have gotten the Pro Bowl Forsett if you didn't get the fired and demoted Forsett, if I didn't go through that process. And, just spoiler alert if guys didn't watch the show yet, but we didn't get a deal on the show. And it was tough in the moment. It was embarrassing. It went through a lot of emotions of, why we didn't get the deal. And it was all on us. And for me, it made me better. It was tough to go through. I liken it to fumbling on national TV. I've had fumbles in games, not a lot, but pivotal points in my career. Like, no one wants to fumble. No one goes out, no running back goes out and say, hey man, this play, I'm going to fumble. I'm going to give the ball over to the other team and give them a chance to win the game. And, like that in business, like with Shark Tank, and you have a fumble or the outcome is not the way you want it. Like, you're going to either take the loss or you're going to take the lesson. And for me, I'm going to take the lesson. I'm going to make sure every day I wake up and I hear that Shark Tank music in my head. And I think about the experience that I had there with the advice that I got, and not getting a deal there. And I use that as fuel. And every day I'm determined to go back on that show and be one of the Sharks one day. And that kind of drives me. But it was great moment for just the team, for the company, and embracing some of our weaknesses, some of the things that we could shore up. And honestly, it was a time where I was still young in the game as an entrepreneur. straight out of the NFL, thrust into, pitching, on national TV. And it was tough, but it was a great, great learning experience for me. I cannot stress that enough, that if it had not been for that moment, I wouldn't be here right now telling you that I'm in 1,800 stores in Target.
Love that. So let's maybe talk about the way you balance all of this, right? Because you were talking about earlier about how being an entrepreneur is 24/7, right? But one thing that I've noticed with you is you really care about your family. And as we're just kind of prepping for this episode, you had to go to a son's soccer game, and so we had to reschedule a couple of times, which was totally cool. But I honestly had so much respect for that, because one of the things I hear about on my podcast is, Shanka, people on your show are great, but most of them don't have kids. And I say, well, if they take the same discipline they have at their work and every aspect of their lives, I'm sure that they're going to be fine, right? But you're someone who does a really good job of balancing all of it. So how are you able to do that?
Well, you got to talk to my wife if I'm doing a good job or not. But yeah, it means so much more to me to be a better husband and a father than it does being an entrepreneur or a football player. That's priority. They're with me in this journey. They support me. They love me. But number one is taking care of the family and making sure that I'm present. I didn't work all those years in the NFL and put my body through, being tackled by a 300-pound man every Sunday to not spend quality time with my wife and kids. The thing is just making sure you're prioritizing. That first year out, it was tough, and just kind of finding that schedule, because normal football, sports players, athletes, and whatnot, we've been given a schedule to us every day, almost of our lives. Like, this is what you're going to do in the morning. You're going to go to class. You're going to go to practice. You're going to lift weights at this time. You're going to run around the track this time. You're going to do conditioning. All those things have been given to us. Now I'm thrust out of that, and now you create your own schedule. You got to prioritize, and it's prioritizing the family. So it's like, if I have opportunity, I'm going to be to every basketball game, every soccer game, make sure I'm do date nights with my wife, because they need to know that they value. And I think that's healthy for every entrepreneur. Like, you got to have, I don't know if you get true balance, because I think I always talk about, when you talk about like this balance of just like work-life balance, as it's seasons. Seasons that you're going to have to work harder. Like, you don't go in the NFL, during the season, there's an off season and there's a regular season. And you got to understand when you got to push hard, and then times when you're starting to ease up and kind of recover and restore. And that's how I try to look at it.
So when you look at your week, it's Sunday, you're looking at what's there for the rest of the week. Are there one or two things that you will always have in your week, or just maybe, or otherwise, maybe, is there any way that you structure your week that's different, that makes you unique?
For sure. So always got to work out.
When?
Work out. So that's either 5:30, 6
in the morning.
In the morning. So I wake up probably around 4:30.
Do you have like a morning routine?
Yeah. So I'll get up, brush my teeth, do a little reading, and I'll go work out. That consists of just maybe lifting, maybe doing some Orange Theory or basketball. I play basketball 3 times a week, so that's going to happen regardless. That's still competitive nature, kind of release some tension. It's really good for my spirit when I'm out there getting buckets.
There's something about football players and basketball. I don't know what it is, but I remember Marcus Stroud, who introduced us. He said the same thing. He said that he has to play basketball. I don't know.
He plays basketball?
I don't know if he's any good. You might have to play him sometime.
Man, I'll give Marcus mad buckets. I can tell you that right now. I ain't even seen him play.
I love it. But yeah, no, I think. Obviously, it's just fun, right? Being around people and just going around and doing sounds of fun. It's kind of like you're back to your childhood. Yeah, it's not competitive like you're used to. I can see that.
The entrepreneur life can be very lonely, and to have an outlet, whether you're working out with amongst people and in the community, is essential for health. Like, we have a saying in the NFL that says your best ability is availability. If you're not available to go out there and perform, you're no good to the team. It's no different for an entrepreneur. If you're not taking care of yourself, if you're constantly you having to take medicine and getting in the hospital, get checked out, if you're just physically unhealthy, mentally, spiritually, physically unhealthy, you're not going to be able to give your best to your company. So you got to be available. And the only way to be available is that you take care of yourself, self-care, and make sure you prioritize that.
Sweet. So you talked about morning routine, basketball. What about the rest of the week? Is there anything that really sticks out to you about the way you structure that?
So family time for sure. That's one. And that's always something with, like, I make sure that I'm either at the kids, outside, we go in the backyard, we're playing right before they go. So we're structured right now. Dinner time's around maybe 5:30, 6. So I'll make sure I'll go out maybe at 4 p.m. and we'll play. I'll make sure I'm giving them a little bit of time right before they get down for dinner. And then I'll go for bath time and story time. So make sure we give them bath, read them a story, we pray, good night, and then they're out by like 7 o'clock. So then that night, rest of the night, it's, reading or working or just relaxing with the wife.
So what time do you go to sleep typically?
It depends. I would say I try my best to be in at 11.
So 11 to
So
what, 4:30?
Yeah.
Wow. Is that just something you got used to, or are you just one of those people that doesn't need sleep?
No, I definitely had to condition myself to do that because, one, I know I had to work out because I know it's just good for me overall health wise. I need to continue to work out, and my wife is a CrossFit coach, so there's judgment if I don't work out.
Oh my! Is she a CrossFit coach in Frisco?
Prosper.
Okay.
Yeah. So
good thing I'm not there. I'm a little scared. Married to a football player, CrossFit coach. Oh man.
Yeah. So she definitely gives me the judgment to make sure that I'm staying in the gym, staying fit. So yeah, I would say, yeah, I have to work out. It's a non-negotiable for me, and so that means getting up early.
Yeah, I think it's just different for different people, right? I took a class by the former CEO of Walmart at one point. Okay. And he told me that he gets 5 hours of sleep and he wakes up and does his Peloton in the morning, cycling. All right. And I was like, oh, I'm so inspired to see how Walmart's doing that. I can do it too. And like, I just felt sick. And I think it's one of those things where people are just different in body types, but I'm always curious to ask.
And there was a topic, a couple weeks ago about, it's like how many hours successful people sleep. They don't sleep 8 hours a day. And I think sleep is important. I don't want to get it wrong because there are some days where I don't wake up at 4:30. And like on Wednesday right now, I'm trying to develop a pattern where I sleep into like 8 o'clock. And I don't start until my day until 8, because as I think about high performing athletes, you never tell an athlete to work and grind themselves all day and then get as least amount of sleep as possible. You tell them to get as much sleep as possible to make sure they're restoring, so those muscles can build. So you're mentally in tune for when more information is being downloaded the next day in meetings. So I think as entrepreneurs, we have to remember that you have to take care of yourself. Sleep is important. So I don't just you got to find your way of making sure that you're getting those hours in. But for me, that's where it is right now.
Sure. So yeah, before we end this segment, maybe we could do this fun part of the episode,
okay,
which I call the hot seat.
Let's do it.
So I'm just going to ask some random questions that we probably didn't get to on the episode. Justin, is there a book that you have read in the past year that has made a big impact on your life?
Yes. Shoe Dog, Phil Knight.
So I've heard people talk about this book, but what about it has really stood out to you?
The perseverance. That thing should have been shut down so many different times. To hear the stories, all of the obstacles that they went through, Phil Knight went through, Nike went through, it's unbelievable. It was a sheer miracle that it is what it is right now. But the discipline, the commitment, the savviness, it was so encouraging as an entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur, you got to read that. Sure.
I'll definitely check that one out. So every job has these perks, right? So, so we had a consultant come on the show. He was in episode number 2, Danny Huizinga, and he talked about how one of the perks of being a consultant is you get all these free miles, right? So being in the NFL, what is a perk that most people don't know about?
Whoa. One perk? Sheesh.
Oh, there's
I mean,
many, huh?
Yeah, I mean, you're VIP for everything. Like you rarely pay for anything.
I feel like the players union did a good job of that.
Yeah, it's just good, man. Especially if you know how to leverage your platform, the platform that you had. I think I did a pretty good job of it. I mean, there's so many different perks that you know.
You're talking about just like the people,
gifts, dinners, concerts, shows.
concerts.
Yeah, just like, man, you're gonna be front row, connections, like whatever you want to do, whoever you want to meet, it's right there at your fingertips.
So having those connections, then you get the free perks. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not. It's hard for me to imagine all this stuff, right? So
Yeah.
I love it. So we talked about working out earlier,
Yep.
right? So when I think about NFL athletes, post NFL time, it seems like they were physically fit for literally their entire life until this point, and now things are different.
Yeah.
And so you obviously, we talked about Orange Theory, you talked about working out by yourself, you talked about basketball, right? But I'm sure that you can kind of feel yourself deteriorating, not physically, but I mean, you were literally at the peak of what a person could do.
For sure.
And now you're not doing that anymore. So are there any supplements or things that you do, or like maybe just routines in general that make sure you're still maintaining that form or fitness level?
Yeah, no supplements, which I should be. I encourage people to get some Ollie supplements. They are great.
You're gonna have
multivitamins.
You're gonna have to explain that.
Yeah, so our good friends and advisors to the company is Eric Ryan. He's the founder of Ollie's Vitamins, and it's a great company. But yes, you gotta get some of those. It's amazing too. They're like gummies too, so I love that. You'll enjoy it.
I love the shameless plug.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to have Mr. Ryan on the show.
Yeah. We'll see if we can work that out.
Yeah.
So, man, for me, it's about the diet is important. I'm not the guy that's like, the best at, staying on it now that I don't even have, I'm not playing football. So you don't have that extra, like, it's not like something that's having to drive home every day. Like I got something that I got to be ready and fit for this, but it's just being ready and fit for life. And so the diet is important. Like if you're going to do all the work in the weight room, in the gym, and you want to see results, you got to eat right. And this year I've been vegan at one point, done a couple fasts. And
how long was the fast?
Different, like 21 days.
You did a 21-day fast. Wow.
Just like fruits, vegetables, no meat.
Gotcha. So you're still eating, but it wasn't like the traditional diet.
Yeah. So,
wow.
So you do intermittent fast too. So, yeah, that's what I was saying.
I love that. Fasting is something we always talk about on the show. It's it's funny because I try not to bring up things that I'm really passionate about, even though, I have a tendency to do that. But we've had 3 guests on the show now mention fasting.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
Pretty cool. Good for the body, good for the mind, good for the spirit.
That's right. That's right. And that's all you need, right? It's
that's it.
of the person. So I love that. Well, Justin, it has been a pleasure having you. And I have to text Marcus and let him know. I'm so glad he introduced us. I'm just sitting there and he goes, dude, you got to go meet this guy. You got to get him on the podcast. I'm like, who is this guy? All I saw was a guy with a Harvard hoodie out there. And
was I in a Harvard hoodie?
Yep.
Oh, man.
Anyway, Justin, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it, Yash.
If you like what you heard on the Yash and Company podcast, go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Yash and Company. If you check out our website at yashandco.com, we'll actually mail you a free sticker if you subscribe. But until next Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen, this is Yash signing out.